A Maria Silvia fala quem está aqui, o nome das pessoas. Venham as três graças de Barcelona. Bom, boa noite.
Good evening.
Sejam todas e todos.
All of you. Welcome, all of you.
Profundamente distinguido.
It's deeply distinguished.
Todos vocês em
for the presence of all of you in Curitiba for the 17th
Congresso Mundial de
World
Educação.
Congress of Education.
Com o meu coração de prefeito,
Mayor, all of you and each one of you. We are going to present now all the ethnics that make up the varied, diversified people of Curitiba. The city that started with the Portuguese in 1693, and then it had
colonização espanhola,
Spanish settlement, and then it received Africans.
Depois recebeu imigrantes
European immigrants from all over the world.
Eram, pela ordem,
Germans, Italians,
poloneses, ucranianos, russos brancos,
white Russians, Austrians, Arabs, Jews, Japanese,
também coreanos mais recentemente,
more recently, and people
do
from all over the world and
inteiro.
from all over Brazil also. Curitiba is a street
por muitos
that goes
países
through many countries and which
no seu coração.
Brazil, all over Brazil, in his heart.
Profundamente distinguido, valoroso trabalho do nosso
by the valuable work of our
secretary de
our education secretary from Curitiba, which have conquered
níveis de IDEB, os mais altos do
país. The highest levels in
Nós
the country.
lhes dizemos
say to you, all of you,
Viva
welcome
Curitiba!
Curitiba. Cheers for Curitiba. Would you like to say anything?
Senhoras e senhores, nosso boa noite a todos.
Good evening, everybody. With this initial greeting from our Curitiba Mayor,
Rafael Greca, damos início então.
We will commence with
sétimo Congresso Internacional
ceremony of the 17th International Congress of Educating Cities to make an opportunity for education and the processes that happen from beyond the walls of schools and social transformation with active participation of all the members of the community is the great bet of the educating city, the 17th of educating cities. We'll talk about social sustainability, environmental economic sustainability, and inclusion, on public policies and revitalizing public spaces and culture. The purpose is to keep our feet firm in the country, allowing the country to allow us for learning laboratories and also keeping our minds turned to the stars to preserve our capacity of dreaming intensely. We will watch now the cultural presentation Ciranda das Etnias.
Oi. Mas o prefeito abriu a porta da casa dele, vai o município vai cobrar dele alguma coisa.
Ou algumas seleções que vai destinar bastante tempo.
Felicidade.
Por ameaça.
A felicidade. Nós temos hoje não curtir uma outra praia. Vocês pensam na bebida. Só essa foda uma VIP. É VIP. Quando for 3 da manhã, todo mundo está ativado. Você vem animar a festa. Nessa festa mal é VIP. É VIP. Nessa festa mal é VIP. É VIP. Nessa festa mal é VIP. Qué falta que me haces, si vieras qué ternura que tengo para darte, capaz de hacer un mundo y dártelo después. Entonces si te encuentro seremos nuevamente, desesperadamente, los dos para los dos. No estás. Qué falta que me hace.
Saudaletes mangala. Saudaletes, saudade cautela. Se ter vez, a de chica vez. Samoca de achei mangal. Lá me tive estrada. Se ter vez. Bailado de chicas, Samoca de achei mangal, tive estrada.
Nacional. Boa noite.
Boa noite para você. Até amanhã. Aventurero con mi guitarra, voy por España. Mi guitarra, mi copla y yo, por los rincones de mi tierra. Y canto los mineros asturianos y los perros de Castilla, los pastores que acompañan con sus costillas de caña. Y bailan entre mis labradores, ya sube mi compas y se la uva, soy barquilla de cantar de marino y en la tierra de la mancha soy cigarra que canta con los vientos del molino. Y con las heridas de un granado y el corazón del pueblo, y yo con el huracán de venido que cruzó el
Judiciário de 4 episódios de game para disputa em jogo, também pela
Justiça. O aplicativo do seu. Uma produção da rádio.
踊り踊るならちょいと東京の花の都の真ん中でやっとなこれよいよいやっとなこれよいよい
Senhoras e senhores, ouviremos agora o hino nacional brasileiro e o hino de Curitiba com a Camerata Antíqua de Curitiba, sob a regência da maestrina Mara Campos.
Master Mara Campos.
Agradecemos a Camerata
I'd like to
Antíqua de
thank Camerata Antiqua from Curitiba
Curitiba.
for
A apresentação.
this beautiful presentation. A very beautiful performance. And then moving on, we start with the speeches tonight. We have the Municipal Secretary, Professor Dr. Maria. Good evening. I'd like to greet our Mayor, Rafael Greca, our Vice Mayor, Eduardo Pimentel, our State Secretary, Rony Miranda, representing our Governor, Ratinho Jr. I'd like to greet our Executive Secretary and President of the International Association of Educating Cities, Marina Canals, person in all our executive committee and all the team that is present here in Curitiba. I'd like to greet our dear brother Rogério Matteucci, magnificent rector of the Catholic Pontifical University of Paraná. I'd like to greet our great companion, colleague of the Council, of the National Council of Secretaries of Education of Capital Cities, Secretary of the City of São Paulo, Fernando Padula. And on behalf, we'd like to greet all the Secretaries of Education that are always present in this event. I'd like to greet all the mayors, all the professionals of education, colleagues, friends. Today is a great day. 2 years ago, Curitiba dove body and saw the actions of the International Congress of Educating Cities with a commitment, firm commitment with education as central pillar, as the pivot of its urban administration. The results reached make us proud because this commitment has generated a dynamic process and significant process for the students of the municipal network of teaching in Curitiba, allowing enriching experiences in the urban environment that truly aggregate value to their learning. The evidence of this progress reflects in the feeling of belonging of the students, in the enlargement of their repertoires, their research, in the production of knowledge, and in the results that Curitiba has been reaching in great assessment, national assessments. We'd like to highlight also the transformation in the engagement of communities that have become more and more participative, dynamic, and demanding, contributing significantly for the development and for the promotion of our cities. We have also identified the commitment of all the professionals involved in the organization of this Congress that have worked collectively, participatively, and dynamically, even though this is a challenging process and deliberate process. This solid approach has allowed us to dialogue with each sector and members of the rich committee, intersectorial committee at Curitiba, strengthening the principle that an educating city is not limited to actions of the municipal secretary of education, but it demands a collaborative work and dedicated work focusing the promotion of education um, along life, and also the promoting and childhood development. And this moment of celebration, getting together 126 cities present in this Congress, makes thrilling, and also gives us the responsibility to present the needs and conquest of Curitiba. So the conquest has been carefully structured in thematic sessions and also experiences highlighting the urban environment as a fundamental vehicle to education, with great enthusiasm that we share the particularities and the challenges of our city, showing how we have overcome obstacles and also sought constantly the enhancement and betterment. The careful organization of the Congress with these diverse thematic sessions and also of experiences aim to enrich the dialogue and inspire new approaches, educational approaches that can benefit not only the Curitiba community but also all the cities that participate. Uh, the expansion and consolidation of the Brazilian network of educated cities, REBRAV, under our coordination that started in 2021, marks a significant moment in the educational scenario of Brazil. We started out with 19 associated cities to reach in this short period of time a total of 41 cities with the commitment, with the ideals and practices that define an educating city. This notable growth is a witness of the latent potential in our communities for the transformation and engagement for an whole education and integrating education. I'd like to highlight especially the expressive adhesion of the cities, the state of Rio Grande do Sul. Our network has been appreciated with 15 Rio Grande do Sul from São Gabriel starting showing a rich diversity in a shared commitment with a sustainable development and inclusive education. These cities have become living examples of what it means to be an educating city, collaborating actively in the exchange of experiences and knowledge that benefit largely and broadly all our network REBRAV. In this Congress, it is really important to also express our solidarity because of the environmental disaster that has affected deeply the state of Rio Grande do Sul. In an immediate answer, REBRAV has organized a space to collect donations in the complex of Barigui Park, showing our capacity of mobilization and support and mutual support in critical moments. This action reflects the spirit of our network. Not only we promote education in the cities, but also being support and solidarity agents in adverse situations. This effort together shows the active role that the network in its member cities has in the building of a society that is more with more solidarity, promoting practical initiatives and collaborative initiatives, strengthening not only the ties among our cities, but also our collective capacity of facing and overcoming challenges, reaffirming the value of education as a tool for social transformation. This case strengthens the vital importance of REBRAV as an instrument of change, socio-economical change in Brazil through cooperation and the engagement. And we show that it's possible not only to face efficiently the contemporaneous challenges, but also paving the way for a more inclusive, equitative, and solidary future. We want to contribute immediately. We saw the material produced by the Municipal Secretary of Education in Curitiba during the pandemic. We had over 50 million access and the pedagogical notebooks that will be launched in this Congress as a way to strengthen the educative actions of the cities in the state of Rio Grande do Sul that have been affected by the great floods. When we highlight the urban environment as a space of learning and growth, we reaffirm our commitment to utilize the city as a true educational laboratory where each street, each square, each building become opportunities to teach and to for discovery. May this Congress be a landmark not only of sharing experiences but also of renewing purposes and commitment with transforming education that is sustainable, innovative, and inclusive. I'd like to praise the wonderful opportunity granted to the professionals of the municipal network Curitiba to participate in this important event filled with studies and research about relevant themes and enriching exchanges of experiences, international experiences. These experiences will be a landmark in our professional career, not only to the people involved, but also for the cities, Brazilian cities that benefit from this ambience of diplomacy and international cooperation, obtaining visibility with no frontiers. We express our deep gratitude to our mayors for their support, for the opportunity granted to us, and for the comprehension and the understanding of education as a fundamental division of leadership of those managers make it possible for the participation in this transforming event, which surely will significantly contribute to the educational development and the strengthening of global ties. On behalf of a more promising future, to all people involved, our sincere thank you for being a part and for valuing this collective educational journey. I would also like to express our sincere thankfulness to the dedicated organizing team of the Secretary Emilia Gabi, Dani Nelson, Luciana, for their tireless hours dedicated and for their effort in the organization of this Congress. Available teams of the Secretariat, represented by Andressa and Oséias, for their commitment and collaboration, and to the Intersectorial Committee of Curitiba, their participants, and all the secretaries of the management of Mayor Rafael Greca involved, for their support and engagement, for the fundamental partnership with the Cultural Foundation, especially with our President, Ana Cristina de Castro, and with the Municipal Institute of Tourism under the leadership of our beloved Susana Turra. And on behalf of them, we'd like to greet all the secretaries that have been involved in this rich journey, to the Executive Committee, International Committee, and Marina Canals, Executive Secretary of the International Association of Educating Cities, for the planning together, for their support, and for their trust in the city of Curitiba. Andre Baspi, Pilar Leonard, exceptional coordinator of for this Congress, and Laura Alfonso, management of the delegation for the Latin America, for this commitment and hard labor, To the members, secretaries, represented here by Fernando Padula, our thankfulness for the partnership, unconditional partnership, and to the support received um, our ministry, Camilo Santana, for their desires, harm, desires success, and to the scientific committee that also has executed the task of elevating the level of academic presentations here, reinforcing the research area in the sector, educating cities. To the beloved academic leaderships, I'd like to express sincere gratefulness to all the actors that have participated in the scientific committee, especially Brother Rogério Mateucci, a magnificent rector of the Pontifical Catholic University of the state of Paraná, to the Secretary Rony Miranda, now representing Governor Ratinho Jr., our thankfulness for the partnership with the state Secretariat of Education, and finally, not less important, I'd like to reinforce my deepest thankfulness to my Vice Mayor Eduardo Pimentel for the support, continuous support, and the exemplary collaboration, and to my dear and visionary Mayor Rafael Greca, whose courage and trust 80 years ago were essential to our involvement in this transforming movement. To all who have contributed and supported tirelessly, my my dearest recognition and gratefulness. Together we are able to reach great things, achievements, and inspire significant changes. Thank you to each one of you for being a part of this journey. Hooray for educating cities.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we hear the president of the executive committee from IAEC, Leomar Comat. Good evening. Hello, everybody. Wh- 1,500 people. I'm talking to you in the name of the president and the delegates. It's an honor to be here. Celebrating the beginning of the 17th Congress event. It is not only a reunion of professionals, but we can witness in a world where the connectivity is essential, where our decision and actions has some repercussion more than from our frontiers. During the last 30 years, the International Association of Educating Cities, that nowadays I represent, is on service of the transformation of the cities. 30 years of knowledge, reflections, thoughts, and action that has brought us to celebrate nowadays this Congress with the firm commitment of more than 500 cities, with the principles and the values in our letter, education letter. This is this perfect space to get together. Here we share recognitions and we feel part of the story that we have built all together. We reflect, we design, and we analyze policies, programs, projects, strategies that help us to go ahead. We share experience of success because and as well as the not good ones because from errors we learn more to keep building spaces of thought and transformation. This is one space to learn and to inspire us. Today we open the doors of the Congress. I mean, all the cities, all the people that are connected in a way. We observe with admiration the work and the effort that has been done this city here. I would like to thank you, all people that make this possible. Mainly to the mayor of Curitiba, Mr. Rafael Greca. Thank you very much. And also the secretariat from the city of Curitiba in education that has just presented. And also her team, technical team, scientific committee. I mean, we would like to make all these expectations possible that proposal has caused because we want to know all the experiences that will be presented. I mean, all the studies visits that you have prepared, as well as listen and participate of all these presentations. In these days, we'll talk, we'll dialogue, we'll have some meetings and chats. So let's use the word which is critical so we can understand each other, no matter the language. I have I couldn't end my presentation without remembering all the cities in Rio Grande do Sul state that nowadays cannot be here with us. I'd like to send a lot of solidarity to all these places. And to wrap up with my presentation, I'd like to express a feeling and a desire. I mean, in one hand, happiness. Happiness to be here in Curitiba today, be able to meet, to share lots of things and keep working so we can transform the world from the cities. In the second hand, the desire to be convinced that this actually is a memorable Congress that, with no doubt, as we have seen and from what we will see, it was done with a lot of soul. I mean, and I'd like to desire as well to wish that we will have all a great Congress. And Sylvia said, hooray to Curitiba and to the educating cities.
Senhoras e senhores,
Ladies and gentlemen, to live in our world, and he left conferencer and speaker in several universities and in the main international convocations about ecological economy, political economy, environment in South America, in the United States, and Europe. It's author of more than 35 books and more than 250 chapters of books and chapters published in Mexico, Germany, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Costa Rica, Chile, Spain, United States, France, England, Italy, German, Venezuela, and Holland. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Enrique Leff. Good evening, everybody. It's a really special moment for me. It's a moment to get back, to work in a commitment, in a role that has been the sense of my whole life, that has become the sense of life, the sense of thinking life and transmitting, sharing with the human beings this reflection. See what's happening now? I was talking to Marina. When I'm here, getting back to Brazil, I can't in front of the Brazilian people. I cannot speak my own language, Spanish. This is a really curious and deep phenomenon that has to do with the big empathy and great feeling of community that I have with the Brazilian people. I still don't know. They are asking me which language are you going to do speech, Spanish or Portuguese. I said I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to talk my own language. Maybe I'm gonna need to do it because the concepts that I want to share, maybe I don't have it in hand to have to talk to be able to talk to you. Why am I here? Because I accepted after pandemics, I have decided to stop all these trips, mainly in Latin America, that has become my country, my big country. Not only my beloved Mexico, but the whole Latin America and Iberoamerica. And when Marina invited me to come here, the first thing I asked, why me? Why should I be here talking to you? What are you expecting? All the personalities of the educating cities that through education want to transform the cities in the lives in the cities to have a more sustainable life. What could I talk to you that you have this whole life dedicating to the sustainability of the cities to reflect you're democratically elected to do this role? What things educating cities? What are these cities going to educate? And now I was thinking beyond which things should be educated, which is the rule. And now I'm going to start talking my language.
Han cambiado profundamente. Quizás no nos damos cuenta. No solamente porque el mundo está continuamente en transformación y estamos siempre comprometidos con un quehacer, con una función, con un compromiso de vida, pero la humanidad
But the humankind didn't notice yet the critical point where we are at. We have been for more than 50 years since in this world we have overcame or we started an environmental crisis. I'm talking about the Stockholm Conference in 1972. That's what I want. That's what I mean. For the first time in these times, it was considered then a criticism to the economic model as well as to the civilizatory process of the humankind. There was a book that traveled through the world. It was The Limits of Growth. That was the title of the book. So there was these questions on the role of the mankind, the destiny that was defined to the humankind, so we can develop, growing, being something else. We had the problem of the demographic explosion, but it was not only that. Actually, it was the economic process, the development process, the process that 50 years ago, for the first time, started to show that there was a failure. Nobody had thought about it, that the humankind had not thought about it yet. What were the consequences of this economic growth process? That actually was the own logic of the economy. I mean, this rationality that actually had to do with the sense, with the principles, with the progress. I mean, the world, actually. In the world where we all were born. Because, of course, we all were born at this modernity. And this actually has become as something unthoughtable that nobody expected. I mean, the humankind didn't expect it. We believed that we were in the right sense of life, of the human life. So we started to understand some signs that we had something else, not something dysfunctional, but something radically wrong. I mean, there was some failures, something that we had forgot that nowadays, after 50 years thinking on this issue, not only the external aspect of the nature within the economical paradigm, but it was we were forgetting of the life. That's what matters. Enigmatic. How a human being that is the greatest being of the creation, how could it have generated a world that have generated this environmental crisis? What was the truth or the untruth that a lot of people couldn't believe this diagnosis of catastrophe? There was a process behind it that it still exists actually. I mean, that is qualified as a negationism, something that the humankind presents, and because they can't understand, they can think that we had caused the destruction of our own life in the planet. This is the theme for what we're here. I have asked Marina if you wanted to hear about it, and after listening to this happiness that we saw here, to see all innovation, positive innovations from the ecological point of view, uh, on regards of the city of Curitiba, a beautiful city. Are we willing to do this? Or are the authorities willing to do this? The cities in this world to face this enigma? Because it is an enigma. I mean, the resources, the origins of this that I call enigma. It's the Anthropocene enigma. We know that today they are named and defined our era as the Anthropocene era. Is not uh, a complement to the humankind, to the supremacy of the human being. The Anthropocene is a radical criticism to the fact that the cause that has provoked this environmental crisis that presents itself not it's only an environmental crisis but a civilizatory crisis. I mean, that started from a failure in the way that the humankind has conducted all this civilizatory process, and as well as a process that became dominant. And there's a lot of people in the university, they call it Eurocentrism, Eurocentric thought, as it is called. But we should rank it more clearly, not only a way of thinking, or the fact that philosophy is weird, that has born in the old Greece, and that will develop itself during the metaphysics history. Everything has to do. This is the roots of this impossibility of the human logos to be able to understand the nature of life. The nature of life is some potential from everything that exists, starting from the lives here in the planet, from a future that is really diverse, is really complex. That in the sense of diversification, we have seen lately the cultural diversity. This is the motivation, the way life is. Let me tell you that I really missed Herabata Patin and the emblematic dance from my country, Mexico. I haven't seen it. But then I thought that maybe because of that you have invited me as a Mexican. I will not dance that comes from Mexico, but I'll keep in telling you the story of the mankind. Today, an environmental catastrophe happened in the city of Porto Alegre at Rio Grande do Sul state. It was an alert that the educating cities and the mankind should know that exists something that's insolite or not normal. Of course, that all the climate events and epidemiological events they have occurred along the history, floods, pandemics, they are part of the history of mankind. But there is something that not only science shows us, this contact, firm contacts, just like emission of contaminant gas, the alert of that these gases has increased from 330 parts per million at the beginning of the revolutionary industrial revolution from to more than 410,000 actually, although it hadn't increased in a level that was growing in past decades, they didn't decrease and they are keep growing.
But these effects is to start manifesting themselves more frequently, more intensely. Not too long ago, the events in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, the city of Porto Alegre, less than a year ago, with a climate event unheard of in the emblematic city of Acapulco in my country. A hurricane, extreme hurricane level 5 that devastated the harbor of Acapulco. Watching the news, I learned that the south of Chile is going through some waves of cold. So climate events that are very extreme. This has been happening more frequently. Some years ago, there was a study that was also emblematic in the studies, climate studies. The name, this name takes the surname of the person who did the studies. Will not get to 450 parts per million. The effects of the greenhouse effects. They would take climate phenomena unheard of, extreme effects. I'm afraid that it's not going to be necessary to get to 450 parts per million. In the body's cope, they said the limit would have to be in terms of temperature 1.5 degree. We continue getting closer to that limit, but also it won't be necessary to get to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Before that, we have been going through those climate phenomena and meteorological phenomena, but the pandemic was it a natural phenomenon? Yes, we know that it's in the stories of religions, world religions. The Jewish God, didn't he send the 10 plagues against the Pharaoh in Egypt to set free the people of Israel? And then after that, Moses wrote in another Decalogue in the 10 Commandments. The first of them said, "Thou shalt not kill." The phenomenon, the pandemic, and COVID-19 cannot be attributed to God or to nature. Nature says, "I'm not guilty." And in reality, I think that no serious scientist could say that the phenomenon of the COVID-19 pandemic was a strictly natural phenomenon. And the topic is not simply that the virus was released by the Wuhan laboratory. The theme is there's an agency that moves the world. This starts in cities and capital cities that has changed the metabolism of the biosphere. The viruses exist in nature ever since life is life. They are initiates of nature itself. They are there. They don't bother anybody. But eventually, by divine design or other causes, they are released. And along history, we already know that there have been pandemics that have annihilated, for example, the Spanish fever annihilated millions of human beings. But these 7 million, maybe more, that COVID-19 um, struck as victims, it does not have the same significance now of science and what was expected and the response and the capacity of the governments to face this environmental emergency, this epidemic. And all of us ask ourselves, we wondered what's going to happen after the pandemic that has changed so much our lives. I was like a refugee, as if it were the most virulent virus in this world. That is making people's consciousness nervous. And then I was a refugee in my library, and I kept on writing. After all of that has changed our lives, has left some deaths, some dead people in family members, because all of us had close people who have died because of the pandemic. After that, we wondered, will life continue being the same? And unfortunately, when we could travel once again and go back to normal life, we wondered, will there be a normality? What was normal? Normal for whom? For life? And it seemed like this event that is so recent, so catastrophic to humanity, it seems that we wanted to leave it behind in forgetfulness, and we are once again in this world, as we say in English, in business as usual. So we asked ourselves, we wondered, what's going on with humankind? Where is the capacity to assimilate and to face all of this? Where does the resistance to humanity come from to face itself and to understand in which way the virus have been liberated? Not only that, the greenhouse gases, if I have to remind you of the transformation of life itself in the deposits of hydrocarbonates and carbon of the geosphere itself that has been conformed as part of the biosphere itself during millions and millions of years. This has generated regardless of religious beliefs, which one about divine creation that has a cosmic creation, and we are in this world because we have come from it. We have come from life, and this life that has gone through moments that we could call catastrophic in and history itself of the planet, of the living planet in which we live, where many species have disappeared. Today, we are close to extinction, but there have been 5 great extinctions. And the question is, this which is happening needs to be understood. Do we have to be so egocentric to say that part of the nature, we are part of nature? We continue being as we are, and if we have to die in this adventure, that will be part of nature. The theme is that this invokes or calls humanity, and this time it is called to the limit of its capacity to understand itself and to be responsible for the consequences of being a human being. Because what we have generated is a failure. It comes from a human failure and not from a failure in nature. Nature will continue evolving in the sense of evolution and creative evolution of life, as it has been called what great in the book published about a year ago, the evolutive creation. But somebody has interfered in life. If you allow me to open a parenthesis to say very fast where this comes from. Life is life. Maybe the first great thinker who thought was Erasticus, and he was called Sisyphus. Sisyphus is the way of thought, the emergencies, potential of everything that exists, and it could be thought as everything that exists at the level of universe and the cosmos of everything that exists in life is the creative potential of life. What has crossed all of that? This was by Heraclitus. What has crossed was the human logos. The human logos intervenes, collecting or harvesting this adversity and this harvest through the world of comprehension, and he has a way for the synthesis of the world, but especially the synthesis, the conceptual synthesis, the concept, and the concept, the reductionist concept of life that has not thought about life, social life, has been evolving. It evolved in old Greece, and then after through the Roman Empire, and then through the European cultures, and which conquer the world and settle and colonize the world, and these went to another way of thinking about things, which was the way to measure everything. That was clear of farming the land and everything that conduced this way of intervening at the beginning, which would be the technical rationality, but that didn't have to do anymore with the sense of the Greek technique, because the Greek technique was creation, was art, it was an extension of life. In other words, everything went along creation, productivity of the meaning of life itself. But I think there's no human intellect that started codifying, and upon doing it, it started to get closer to the process of the story of metaphysics, the evolution of human thought, and it appears in the another character that you know, and with the speech of the method, he divided what was existed. He divided the world between reason and nature, between culture and nature, between subject. And with this division of the subjective and objective was the unleashing of the method. Science was born. the Newtonian science, Bacon's science, and all this great human thought.
and has advanced in defense to object the world. This was not objective, it was something that you could understand and could live within this process of complexity of life. Physics was not nature as it is conceived by modernity. The modernity after the physics sciences has founded economic science and it has forgot the nature. Nature is necessary to be explored, but including in the Critical Capitalism book from Karl Marx, the formation of economic values has doesn't consider nature, but considers productivity of capital, the value of the human work. But in this moment, physics has converted, has transformed in a set of objects that will be manipulated, that will be used as a resource, a natural resource, and human being reduced in the simple workforce. This is the situation of the Industrial Revolution, everything that has been generated as comprehension of history. History that Marx tried to put under your feet toward the illusionism of the contradiction of the capital and work, but the nature that Marx saw, it was destroyed. This seemed to exist because of God. It would be affected, impacted, but it would recover. We would always have nature. That marks the environmental crisis in 1972 as a first moment of diffusion in the UN level. Is that this understanding of the world was not then. We had this critical failure of understanding. Humankind has exteriorized the nature and has converted it in a pure object that would be manipulated. Nowadays, the geoengineering goes through the heart of the earth to extract, through fracking, the last breath of earth. The capacity of science and technology has penetrated in the life. They worked on the course of life. Life nowadays is not only life. Through human genome, the transgenesis, science and technology has acted in life, in the destinies of life. And in everything happen at the same time, the degradation process of life that will have to be said in a conceptual synthesis as well. The capital, this way of production, that the mayor, the president that rules the world, the authority that rules the world, starts with letter C, its capital. And this capital, its logics, the imperative that present people in the way we feel, the way we say, our impulse to consume, that is in the decision makers' visions and the authority democratically collected for the destinies of the humankind that are the destinies of Earth nowadays, they are co-optated by the capital logics. This is the sovereignty that imperates on what on life actually. The sovereignty of this logic. It was put in this word then a logic. Sometimes they say it's a model, but it's a rationality. That's the rationality empire that was fed by Descartes and then by all ideology of the illuminism of the reason. Even the French Revolution would like to highlight the values of freedom, equality, fraternity. But what imperates in this world are not these values. We keep using it through the catalogs that are not done in the stones anymore. They're not written in the rocks, but it moves the world. And this you know really well. Mayors, including educators, what rules the world, that's it. The principle, not only the reason, but the principle that has fed the building of the humankind, that everything had to be driven by the principle of reason. But nowadays it has fallen, even if you don't want to see, these principles has fallen. The principle that has founded our senses. They are causing the epidemic crisis and climate crisis, the degradation of life. And I'll tell you why. Actually, I didn't go straight to the point because capital, in its logic, needs to reproduce itself. Marx said about the widened reproduction of capital. The capital, although it not values the nature, it feeds from it. Actually, it's a infinite hunger of capital. And then it was thought after Rio 92 conference that technology could rescue the capitalism and modernity. People thought that technology would have the capacity to dematerialize the production. There was created the Wuppertal Institute from the World Resources Institute in this world with the goal to show that it was possible to decrease 10 times the quantity of nature that was needed so you could feed this productive process and consequently increase the GPD by unit. But it didn't work as well. And besides some physics like Bar Seymour, they said that capitalism would feed from a matter and an energy that didn't make any difference. But what we saw happen in the last decades that I have mentioned already is the geoengineering, the fracking, the capitalism for disposition, mining, great entrepreneurships that do not, for example, somewhere that you can use, a mayor can use this rock place with lots of creativity as Jaime Lerner has used to create this wonderful space at like the Wire Opera or the Space of University here in Curitiba. That was the free University of Environment here in Curitiba that I visited yesterday. These were human experiences that were wonderful. But this is not enough. This is not enough because what produces these logics of the capital logics. Well, maybe some won't like that I'll talk about capital when we intend this to belong to a theory or ideology that come from the past in the history of postmodernity, but it's an economic process, own economic process that feeds itself from nature and transforms it. I mean, we're talking about transformation. There is no element or transforming agency that could be widened or that the capital itself, because it transforms the nature to create commodities, goods that are needed for humankind. But during this process, there is a law, basic law from nature, that is the entropy law. This law specifies that all energy that is transformed, it is not transformed only, it degrades itself. For example, global warming, it's an impact of that, of the degradation of the energy. Not only the emission of the gases in atmosphere, all energy is being degraded, and heat, the heat is the manifestation of this degradation of energy. This is provoking not this heat that the sun sends us, but the economical process that is that the humankind wants to defend. I have no doubt that collapse of the economical system will bring us to some consequences to humankind, because we're stuck on that, on what Marx called this rationality cage. This is the diagnosis of the world that we live in. The urban growth was provoked by these logics. The logics of the scale economies, and nowadays we try to stop the cities, so they are some places where people can live, but using this progress motor that we have, but not action. Of course that cars can be electric or not, but cities more and more are filling of people and cars. Jams, traffic jams in the cities, all of this is getting to some limits that make us we will have in a point that where we will not be able to live from these individualism logics that we have, or the egocentrism, or when of course I have lived when I was young, when I started driving, when for example we had a traffic jam, people try to accelerate, but it was impossible. But of course, we have this educating function, because we learned that first would be better if the first car and then the another car. Today, Marina has taught me something critical from educating cities. That to go through streets to come here to the theater, for example, she was like, please look, because the green has to be light, otherwise they can run you up. Of course, it's an educating process. I don't know if this happens in schools, but people has to learn during this transformation. But not all transformation and innovation give us this sense of freedom of life, because we are in a world, we are stuck in these logics in the world. In intellectual level, decades ago, we had some critical thought regarding metaphysics, the formation of this rationality cage that I have mentioned, and we started to see new theories, mainly on philosophy and social science, not only the constructionism, but the deconstructionism, Not only we face this, so we can understand it, how the history of metaphysics got to condensate and code and stratify the human thought in the paradigms of the knowledge that we have learned in schools and mainly in universities. But nowadays, these paradigms, they don't give us some security. These do not guarantee the success of our professional life because something has changed deeply. Because that is the sense of the existence of human being. So I ask again.
Besides knowing how to live or how to survive in this world, it's been said. This has been said in 1854 by the for Seattle when the governments of Washington wanted to buy the lands of the Indian groups. He used to say, "How I could sell then the firmament, or could sell my territory if through it the blood of my ancestors runs, how can I diminish the economic value?" And nowadays, this economic value is reduced because today we even aim to solve the climate problem through this carbon bonuses and through economic actions on rights to pollute and everything. So we are all the time thinking about that, and we don't want to leave that economical logic. What actually were assets that were fundamental to life in the past, which was not translated in natural resources like air, water. These assets and environmental services today are codified also, and they are um, because environmental education that was born to have a critical meaning in 1972. It was born through an international program of environmental education of UNESCO that I coordinated during 22 years of that network of environmental development of the Caribbean and South America. To take to the understanding of the values and everything, because the crisis, civilizatory crisis, is a failure in understanding the conditions of life. They are thermodynamic positions and also ecological conditions. These conditions are also cultural, symbolic conditions, and also unconscious conditions. We have to be responsible, accountable, and we have to understand the thermodynamics of life. But not only that, we have to understand what are the aspects of the human consciousness. This has caused the impulses that we have on this planet. So, where does all of this come from? I've mentioned the error of logic, for example, to think logos that ended up being in the story anthropology, to think philosophically the being, that's his ontology. Of course, everything that exists, we always say that is to be, that is. This makes us reflect on what the being is, but we come to an abstract mysticism, hoping for mysticism that in some moment the being will be able to manifest its truth and to get into the mind and the human mind and heart. In the meantime, the world is being divided with social environmental conflicts everywhere, territorial conflicts, because capital advances and diminishes nature and advances those traditional territories. Therefore, what do we have to educate? We have to be accountable, responsible for that impulse of the unconscious to dominate nature, and sometimes we say, "Oh, God has said to us that we should submit nature to give life to humankind." And Bacon used to say that we must deal with nature as something different. The human thought has come to that point, something not seduced but submitted to our desire. So where does that human impulse come from? The great psychoanalyst Lacan faced. Um, he coined a sentence, and he was considered Fred from Martin Rider with his ideology of truth of being. He said that what moves human beings is the lack of being, actually, the failure of being. Of course, we have to be responsible, accountable for that, because human beings are living organisms that is destitute of everything, because we live what Freud called the most sinister. We are out of paradise ever since we were born. There's the human condition. There's a failure, a constitutive failure that moves human beings, so that he would like to have power over nature, power over other people, power also to be. This also, in other words, is a willingness of power, like Nietzsche used to say, a desire, power of dominance. So my question is, educating schools are willing then to have this deep questioning about human nature, because without that we are not going to be able to understand things. There are two entities intrinsically unsustainable. One of them is capital and the other one is cities. The cities even being wonderful, I want to say that I would not deconstruct countries, Mexico or Curitiba. Well, they're wonderful, but they are intrinsically unsustainable because they don't bring energy and food. They are not sustainable. Without sustainability, there's sustainability. Sustainability has to be global. The only way that has been democratic were the climate changes, the pandemic, for example, due to different circumstances, affected so many people. Also, the governors to be able to forecast, to foresee those problems. But that's the issue. What are we teaching nowadays our kids and ourselves? How do we learn to live in this world that is adrift? Because global warming and disasters will continue to exist, even if today we are able to diminish that emission, gas emissions. There's something that is in the dynamic of metabolism, a biosphere, and that will generate those phenomena. And like we commented, humankind is not ready for that. Each event that happens surprises us, even though we have some previous warnings. Humanity is not ready for that, but especially it's not ready to take over the responsibility that has to do with nature, human nature, the anguish that each one of you supports. How much anguish you can say that I have not generated that, I'm not personally responsible. No, personally nobody is. Who are we going to blame? Aristotle, Bacon, Descartes, who will be guilty? Bolsonaro, Trump, or if you want my president for you, will not think that I'm talking about high personalities. Who will be guilty, blamed for it? Who can we blame today? In democracy, democracy is safe from insensibility of this world. We are not today exactly like the frogs. You know, do you know that story? If the temperature starts going up, frogs or they die before perceiving the heat. Are we going to be different, distinguish changes before we are aware of what's happening and be able to act? It's not an individual response, but individual responses, even the best ones, even improvements, are not conjugated because of environmental movements worldwide. It's not a movement that is consolidated and integrated as the consolidation, for example, of entrepreneurs, of capitalists, and politicians. Forgive me to say that, but they are, according to that logic, because they play according to this logic. The problem is not a philosophy course to think about the deconstruction of the logic that has taken over the world. The problem is how to dismantle this machinery, how we do the transfer it to a sustainable world. Or is there a condition, this logic, this economic rationality is a condition that has no salvation? No. There is another form of thinking about production, the production from the potentiality of the productivity in nature, the traffic for the building of a true bioeconomy. And this is possible if economists, to begin, were accustomed by economy is not only solar panels or geothermals, but is to produce through the productivity of nature itself, of forests, of woods, in the Amazon region, the Brazilian Amazon, and now the great Amazon is the greatest solar collector. Life comes from the transformation of photosynthesis of plants. This huge area of capture and transformation of solar energy and vital energy and natural resources in nature. But today, of all the movements of the people learning to live according to the logic of life in that region needs to be enlarged. It's not only to increase green areas in cities or intelligent buildings, smart buildings, because sustainability needs to be global. I will try to finish now, to close now, because I know there's a time limit of capacity, of willingness, of getting into this type of reflection, and it can be tiresome, what I'm saying. But the topic is exactly this. Where is the capacity to build and to think about this transition? It can be done reformulating the logic that we have in the first moment of environmental education. We believe that the failure was the fraction of scientific knowledge in what was necessary interdisciplinary programs. And the motto of interdisciplinarity has invaded universities and other sectors. what happens is that science, the question today is that if science has a capacity to produce knowledge that can transit to sustainability of life, and actually I believe that that's not it. What it has shown in all these 50 years of trying to go to all sciences of knowledge, of scientific knowledge, because science works with objective knowledge, which is the knowledge of the current reality of what is factual. It doesn't think about the transcendence. It's not capable of thinking. Knowledge occurs behind life. So we need to open up other forms of understanding and comprehension. We need to contain this cycle of rationality of knowledge and science. Universities need to open up not only that scientific knowledge may be applied, we need to open up to listen to other modes of life and comprehension. I need to say openly, we need to open up ourselves to understand the peoples and the earth, because the peoples of the earth, in spite of their conquest and colonization and the desire to be civilized, because they were wild people, savage, not only not only survive, they have the capacity and their cultural resilience to reinvent their identities, to recommunicate with their nature, to gain rights, cultural rights, rights to their territories, and this is the great battle which they are doing. The cities cannot surround themselves. They cannot become what has been called by the Englishmen to us to surround to privatize themselves and then seek their progress and their sustainability. We need to open up ourselves to other ways of comprehension from ethics and the perception of the body. I do not deny, I cannot deny, and I don't want to do that in capacity of human mind, but there must be another reason, a reason that would break the logic of the universal, this logic that has been captured by the capital, which is the logic of the absolute empire that reduces everything to market values, to the units of market values. Because of this rationality, I will close. I propose, and maybe it's disjunctive or a radical syntagma that can articulate all the life has made me think, and I call it environmental rationality, not because it is excessively rational, but I call the other ways of comprehending life. So we have to transit to a cosmopolitanism that goes beyond what we call nowadays rationality. Environmental rationality is it has three pillars, three categories or concepts. One of them is ontology of life, or life from physis. Physis as a potential, like Heraclitus, Heraclito, indeclinable potential of life, which moves on through the complexity of the diversification. But since life is not only life, but the intervention of human beings by the polis, it's not pure physis, it's not pure logos. We need to start through a policy of differences. And the policy of difference goes way beyond tolerance, or in a city like Curitiba, or in a country like the United States, for example, or the different cultures, many of them, because the need to immigrate, they are encouraged by the need to create of political regimes that sought many times to exterminate them and for the difficulties of survival in these countries. But with that policy of differences, difference or other elements are more radical and are the hardest one that humankind will have to assume, which is the ethics of austerity, the ethic of austerity faces this principle of individualism and egocentrism of human beings and the illusionism of the capacity to control the world through reason. The ethics of austerity obliges us to look at other people as something that is not translatable to my own self, my own ego, that go beyond my capacity of understanding, but it has the right of existence. The transit to austerity is to transit to a world of living together that we have not understood yet, which implies in what a human being demands as supreme being of creation to understand his limits and to welcome life. So I will close with a poem that I had written, that I had recovered from a text, and that today I cannot say it's a poem. It was written by it's Eliot in 1936 about a murder in the cathedral, which was on this occasion because they assassinated the Archbishop of Canterbury, and this um, moved humanity today. Nowadays, people die because of drug traffic, organized crime, which is part of the degradation, the moral and political degradation of life. And today, people rob people because of 20 cents, but in my country, half territory is taken by organized crime. And also, it's an effect of capitalism, of the incapacity of capitalism to give a life that is worthy and that has sense for people, and they are refugees in the traffic of drugs. That today is also drugs and organized crime and drugs in politics. So we need to give a new meaning to the world. But we can call somehow this extreme point of degradation.
Where is not the function of death that goes beyond the principle of pleasure of Freud. What happens today with the social environmental degradation in the human soul is some pleasure for death. Uh, I don't know how many feminicides happens in Brazil, but in Mexico, the murder of women. I mean, the humanitarian crisis that we have, and the question is, can we fix it? Finding words to speak it? Eliot said before the extreme murder of an archbishop that he missed each horror when it has its own definition, when every suffering has some function. But nowadays we cannot stop anymore. It's out of time. It's an instant eternity of evil. We cannot clean what we have this supernatural poison. It's not only that, it's not only house the cities, but the whole world is a total failure. And this seems to be a peccata minuta, facing what's happening in the world. Is humankind capable of responding to that? We are in a limit moment to see the capacity of the human being. So I say it again, we will not solve it in cities. We will not solve it in university, as it was mentioned by Jacques Derrida, and university with no conditions. We need to open up for this cosmopolitanism through a knowing dialogue. And this is to connect ourselves with other worlds so we can so other world possible world can emerge, because as Heraclitus was saying, physics, the creating potential of life, it's great. So although we do it the human being, we cannot get to the limit to be agent of extermination of lives. I cannot say sorry if you are touched here, but I cannot do anything else and only sharing this. I'm not a pessimist because I believe that exist elements that exist the force of life, and I believe in the bet for life. As I give the one of my books the title, I believe in it. I believe in people, in land. I believe in capacity, not of knowing everything, but knowing to insert ourselves in the conditions of life and being not the dominators, not the agents, but to know how to sail, to share life, the courses of life. More than only living, to be committed with dignity of life, with supreme value of life. So yes, live, long live education cities, long live Curitiba, long live life. Hurrah to life and humankind, so we can live our lives. Thank you.
Nós agradecemos ao professor Henrique Leff pelas suas palavras. Nossa secretária municipal de educação, professora doutora Maria Silvia Bacila, está entregando uma lembrança ao professor Henrique Leff. Eu quero pedir mais uma forte salva de palmas para o nosso palestrante, professor Henrique Leff.
This way we thank you for being here. So please remind that the International Congress of Educating Cities will happen up to 24th of May at Parque Barigui. We wish all of you an excellent night.